You know, I swear, one of these days we'll get that music to work.
Really? I thought I heard your cat crying again, Moss. Did you
Nope,
lock him up?
that wasn't mine. Door's
Oh, you
open.
can hear that? That's actually my cat.
That's your cat.
Oh my.
He's trying to get in. Oh, okay. Thanks, guys.
Welcome to yet another week of the ModZoo's Weekly Hangout. This is episode 9, and this week we're going to be discussing some of the roots of modding, where it came from, what kind of led into it, and mostly, at Bill's suggestion, what brought us into it. And this week we've got, as usual, Bill.
Hey, everybody.
Our modding mosquito, Chris.
Hello.
And we have a couple of special guests here. We've got Craig Tate.
How's it going, guys?
And Bob Stewart.
Hey, guys.
Guests. We've got guests.
Yes, indeed.
That's awesome.
I rolled out the welcome mat.
Well, you know, we go looking every now and again for people who can actually, you know, help prop us up. So before we get diving into the topics here, Chris, you got any news from this week in the ModZoo?
Oh, I suppose I could, if I can find what I'm looking for. So as far as our review schedule goes, that's pretty much the same as before. We've just added a couple of mice for Jeremy to review and some other Cooler Master keyboards, as well as a Streacom review for one of their cases, which is a passively cooled thing. Let's see here. This is our featured project for this week.
Whoop.
By Project Doom by Zenator, or Zen Mods. And there's a lot of pictures here, so there's progress before that we haven't showed you yet. But basically, it's a Master Case 5 by Cooler Master. And he's going with a Doom theme, hence the name Doom.
Oh.
And if you are squeamish, you may want to look away, because he's doing some pretty amazing modeling work on this one. And he's making all kinds of figurines.
He's building a Revenant.
Yeah, and this thing is pretty sweet. I mean, the details and stuff.
That's pretty slick. Oh my.
Yeah.
Wow, that's cool.
Wow.
And so there's, I mean, a ridiculous amount of work having gone into this already. And, like, I don't even know that he's done anything besides paint the case. So, looking forward to where that one's going. And, yeah, head on over to modzoo.com to check out some more project logs from all of our members.
Mm.
So is it official there's going to be a new Doom game coming out, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, they're rehashing Doom. They're basically bringing in a new engine.
Are they going to bring back, what's his face? You know, the two guys split, the two main coders from the original game, they split up, and they're not getting back together again for this one, are they? No.
No. Carmack's got himself a gig at Oculus. He's their chief technology officer there. And the other John, I can't remember what company.
John
he's working
Romero.
on. Yeah, Romero's got another game started.
Oh, okay.
As long as he doesn't turn it into another Daikatana.
That is going to follow him around forever.
It is.
All right, so I wanted to just start off a little bit with some quick dirty research, I guess, when I was looking at this. I got curious a little while ago as to trying to backtrack into the hot rodding and, you know, some of the things that kind of inspired me to look at computers a little bit differently, motorcycles and whatnot, and found out that some of the original mods ended up being out of necessity during the bootlegging days. You had the guys who wanted to be a little bit faster than the cops, so they would tweak their engines just a bit more, and then in return the police turned around and started tweaking their crap a little bit more, and eventually around the end of World War II, you had all of the guys coming back who had that engineering experience, being trained out there in the wilds to fix their Jeeps and all of that, and they've got nothing to do now in their free time, so what are they going to do? They're going to head out to the salt flats, they're going to tweak their vehicles, they're going to paint them up now. And so you got this explosion of crazy things happening to cars. And then on the other side, you have the Air Force guys coming back. They're used to being strapped to an engine going 100 miles. They can't find anything the same back here until they get on their motorcycles. And they've got to start individualizing those, making them go faster, and just doing their own thing. And you got the chopper, the entire chopper industry that grew up out of that.
Bobbers.
Oh yeah, and eventually, it's one of those things where you've got all of these shows that are going coast to coast, and you've got all of these people who are making their names by traveling around with whatever vehicles they've modified, and people are starting to sell posters, people are selling T-shirts, and it's a huge growth industry out there. And then you come jumping into the 90s, the 80s and the 90s, and you've got the kids who don't really necessarily look at vehicles the same way, but they've got these huge, ugly beige boxes sitting on their desks. And somebody somewhere comes up with the bright idea that they're going to make their machine go a little bit faster than the other guys, but it gets too hot. And so what are you going to do when you've got something that's too hot? You're going to get air flowing through it. And so a guy takes a hole punch or whatever, and he just goes to town on his case, puts a fan in there, takes a picture of it, puts it out on the internet. And then you've got a couple of kids who see that and they go, hey, I can do that. Start trying to one-up each other, just like back in the old days with the speed on the cars. I can make mine go a little bit faster than you. And before you know it, we're sitting here today where you got all of these companies now that are taking all of this do-it-yourself stuff. And we've got cases that have windows in them where before you would have to do all of the work to put your windows in. Bill built himself up pretty much by doing that as a business at the start and blowing our minds away with what he was doing with the H channel and all of that stuff. And so yeah, that's pretty much the really, really dirty history. There's so much detail we could go into, but that's
yeah, a history that's inspired people around the globe watching us Americans, because to me, custom culture represents individualism, freedom, creativity, being open-minded. Really, it's just about freedom, and that's what America is. It represents freedom. And to take things and twist and paint and torch and cut and make it all your own, and then arrive and have everybody's jaws drop. And it's an expression of like, I could just, this came from my head and I just wanted to express it and show you. What I wanted to ask these guys, because they kind of, we're on the same age and we've grown up seeing the same things here. And I wanted to ask these guys, what was that quintessential thing in your life that made the light go off, that you saw that, oh my God, I get it, I understand what custom is, to the point where they're here today on the Hangout for a group that loves PC building and customizing, but something with these guys was the first ignition of that spark that, oh my, I'm in love with this, and it stayed with them all this time, including us too. Now Moss is the younger one out of the bunch, so I'm actually more curious to hear, what was it that Moss saw? What was that one thing, Moss, that just like, wow, I want to do something like that?
I guess I don't know what kept me around, excuse me, but the first thing that got me into it was just the fact that I had inherited a computer that needed some work in the airflow department, so I started messing around with that, and next thing you know, I'm finding all kinds of fun things to do. But I think for me it was the idea, because mostly what I do is scratch builds, and I do mostly wooden scratch builds because that's my other hobby, and to me it was a lot of a lot of stuff in the instances of, what do you want it to look like, and maybe you don't want it to look like a computer per se. You might want it to look like some piece of furniture or look like something else. And so, to me, I've always liked the utility of having something without the visual impact of necessarily having it around. So I think that's probably one of the biggest things that got me into it.
And what you like to do is you like to craft scratch builds from wood. You really enjoy wood crafting as a whole. And I've watched some of the projects, and you just finished one this week, didn't you? A new one.
Yep, I did.
Do you happen to have it in that room with you? I'm wondering.
I'm using it right now.
Oh, you're using it right now. Moss, what number is this now for like a scratch built wood case? Is this like the 4th one or?
Oh, jeez. It depends. Is my wife watching?
Nope.
No, I pretty much guarantee none of our wives are watching, and they won't be watching this.
I don't know. I'd have to
okay.
look. I don't remember exactly. It's definitely more than 4 or 5, though.
All right, and this is this a micro ATX or ITX one?
This is a mini ITX. Let me grab a flashlight here. I don't have any lights in it because I didn't feel like it, but basically it's a little...
Oh, you got a heat pipe going. Cool.
Yeah, it's a thin ITX, so the board is actually... the whole thing is pretty thin.
Oh, wow.
So...
Is that like 4 inches or so?
Not even. Let's see. Sorry about the noise. It's roughly 2 1/4.
Oh, jeez.
It's like Moss's PlayStation 5 there.
Yeah.
There you go. But yeah, to actually answer the question, I think I'm on 2.6. That was number 8 for scratch builds.
So when we all die, Moss, you need to carry this on, okay? And your children need to carry this on, okay? He's already been described as the keeper of the ancient monkey scrolls. Whenever we need to reference something, we usually ask Moss because he's recorded it somewhere.
Quite an honor.
Yes. But Kyle is quite a bit younger than I am. I'm not even that much younger than too many.
That's true. But Kyle's never around.
That is true.
Yeah. Now, Bob, you and I are about the same age. I'm curious. I would predict. I think I know what you're going to say, but maybe not.
All right. Let's see. Let's see what your prediction is, and I'll tell you.
Well, I'm gonna. I mean,
Throw it out there.
to me, I'm sure that we both watched the same Saturday morning cartoons, and we both went to the toy section and looked at the Hot Wheels and Matchboxes, and probably owned a lot of the same toys.
Oh yeah.
I'm gonna bet that it was probably. It may have been a model car or something that you saw, or might even been a custom car builder where you saw, or in a Hot Rod magazine. I couldn't say specifically, but I think I hit the right genre.
Yeah, I think you're pretty close. Actually, I think the first thing that really got me thinking was when I was about 8 years old, I believe. I got a go-kart, and I remember specifically, after you drive it around a little bit, it's like, man, this thing's slow, so you get used to it. And I'm kind of an adrenaline junkie, so first thing I wanted to do is figure out how to make it go faster, and then it was like, I saw a different go-kart a kid had, and he had different tires, so I was like, oh, I need tires like that, and then it's like, and then it just started going, it's like, okay, and then I want to put something cool on the front, like, because I was getting squirrely. I was always smashing the front end, and the wheels were getting all bent, so it wouldn't steer right. So I was like, I'm gonna put something on the front so I can protect the wheels, and and of course, I'm like 8 or 9. I can't weld yet, but so it's figuring out ways to like just modify it and just get it all tricked out back then, and and then my dad was always getting cars and working on them and doing stuff to him too, so that was kind of a big influence to me, and he doesn't do anything near like what we do now, but back then when you're a little kid and you see your dad like doing any little thing, it's like, wow, cool, man, I want to be like my dad, and so yeah, that's kind of what I guess my moment, was just getting that go-kart in the beginning and just going from there and then I wanted to make it faster, so of course I tore it apart and tried to figure out how the engine worked, and that cost my dad about $300 at the shop to get fixed, and that and a new set of tools because I did it in the grass and I lost the sockets and stuff and parts and but hey, I learned from it, and then
Which were promptly found on the next lawn mowing.
oh yeah, my dad found them eventually. Which then bent the blade and stuff, but I mean, yeah, it's amazing what a extension or a socket will do to a lawnmower blade. It's like, so yeah, but that kind of, I don't know, and then from there it was like, then I got back in the day, I mean, we had three-wheelers, that was the big thing, and so it was like,
the Honda Death Trap three-wheelers.
Yes.
Yeah.
Cats.
So it just all snowballed from there,
Obviously, so well. One thing I was right about though is that, and when I'm going to share my epiphany was I was 8 years old as well. It seemed to be that one age that I think in that time in the 70s. Also, you have to consider that back then, it was cool for parents to let their kids just go outside and run around, get the hell out of the house, go out, get out of here, go do something, and so you would discover this whole world on your own through your friends and things. And it seemed like that was the age when you were old enough that your parents were like, you can just go figure out things, be back here by dinner.
Yeah,
Craig,
totally.
what do you think?
I've actually done a little bit more thinking since before when we started talking just before the cast, and I got to thinking, okay, a lot like you, Hot Wheels were a huge influence and still are a huge influence in regards to what I do. But I got to thinking to myself, well, what is it that drew me to Hot Wheels? And I remembered two very critical things that happened early on in my childhood. I was born in 1970, and my family, we lived out in Abilene, Texas, and had a lot of family out in small town Abilene, Tuscola, Buffalo Gap, Lawn, just little spot podunk town. So you always had to kind of find your own way in regards to finding something fun to do. But it was small town, so you didn't see those gee whiz bang things that happened in the city. You didn't. But my Uncle Ronnie, and the man is a mechanical genius, had taken a 34 Ford.
Oh, sweet.
And tricked that thing out. It was it was all purple, and it was that magical metal flake that was like the really big metal flakes, the ones that look like it looks like the car is just gonna like fly away all by itself.
It's like a bass boat.
Yeah, right on.
And on the inside of the car was like that 1.5 inch long pile shag, purple carpet.
What was it about that stuff, man?
Dude, it was, but I'd never seen anything like this before.
You could lose a small child in that.
You could. I think I got a life preserver thrown in there, whenever I was. And the gas pedals were bare feet. The gas pedal was a large bare feet.
Big foot.
And
Yeah.
I think I still have one of those.
And so I can remember we were there until I was about 4. So I can remember, I still have that in my head from when I was 4, riding in that car and just going, oh man, this is cool. And then to compound the problem, we moved out to Southern California whenever I was a little kid, and my best friend up the street, his dad owned a body shop. And on the weekends, he and I would go up with his dad to the body shop, and we would tape out cars and we would help sand stuff down. But he had like the Tri-Cat, he also had a golf cart that had like these big inflatable balloon knobby tires on it. We'd go out flying through the sand dunes back behind the car shop. But I fell in love with that whole custom mechanic, that whole, taking a car or taking something that looks one way and setting it apart and making it look like a one of a kind. And at that point in time, it was just like, bing! I was like, oh, this is something else. And so ever since then, anytime I saw a good classic car or even a modern car that they had done some customization to it, I always went out of my way as a kid to go over. I just gravitated to it, and started talking to the people, and I recognize the car for this. I built this model a couple of years ago. Does it have this engine in it? Stuff like that. And it's just, to this day, it's still. I drive by a car show and I get like whiplash. I got to turn the truck around and go find a parking spot and go take a look and oogle and apologize for the drool on the paint. Stuff like that.
Well, the cars do have that gravitational pull when it's a custom car. And it's funny, as we get older, you freak out just over a pristine, mint condition classic car. It doesn't even have to be customized, but it's like, because you understand how much work it takes to have something remain or restore it to that original condition again.
Yeah.
The time involved.
And also, I mean, with the fact that all of those, when you start getting below the 60s right now, when you get into the 50s, 40s, and 30s, those bodies are becoming rare. Those frames are becoming extinct, so those parts don't exist anymore.
Rusting away.
So to see somebody with one of those in a pristine shape is like it's to be respected.
Oh, very much so. Yeah, and it seems, unfortunately, it's in some ways it's a dying art because that generation is passing away.
Right.
And so they're relying on us to continue it and our kids. And there is kids being inspired by it, but it's nowhere near what it used to be. So we we have to keep that heritage alive. And I believe that with PC building, what was like a lot of kids that buy stuff or are on the forums, they're 14 years old. They don't have their driver's license yet. What's the closest thing to having independence that you can like go out and do your own thing on, right? It's a PC. So a lot of these people graduate to cars, whether it be import cars, motorcycles, or whatever kind of cars. When they finally get their license, you see that, and that's why a lot of us share the same interests of cars and computers and bikes too. But I'll share. I thought a lot about this because Drew had dropped this idea on me last week, and so I really put a lot of thought into it over the week. Like, what was that one thing in my life that clicked and it made the sense where the serotonin just flooded my brain? Like, oh, this is unlike anything else before, and it's so wrong yet it's so right, and you just it's kind of like it's like sex, it's like it's like this is a good feeling, You
can leave that. You can definitely leave that. Yep.
So I was 8 years old, and at the time, my mother after school. I didn't go home. I'd go to my grandmother's house. And my cousins who lived nearby, we all went to my grandmother's house because she was at home and she would watch us until our parents got home, okay? And so, of course, me and my cousins would drive my grandmother freaking nuts because we're 3 boys and we're just doing stupid stuff, right? And she'd be like, get the hell out of here. And she lived... Luckily for her, she lived a block away from the library. So she would send us to the library to basically have the librarians babysit us, okay?
Free.
And the thing was, I was thinking about, and me and my cousins, we were really bad kids. I mean, we basically were like the baby version of the Trailer Park Boys and get into trouble all the freaking time. Well, I mean, there's stories we get into. Anyways, there would be times when the librarians would have to freaking send us into the hallway to discipline us because we were being too loud, and she's like, you go out in the hallway until you tell you to come back. Anyway, so we would always go to this library. Well, at that age, again, 8 years old seems to be that landmark age. I wasn't interested in the kids section of books. It's like, I don't care about Wizard of Oz. I don't want to read about this this whatever.
Curious George can walk away.
Yeah, exactly. And my cousin, it's always the older brother or older cousin. He was probably, I think he was 2 years older than me. He was into hot rods. There was Hot Rod magazine, so we'd look at the magazine racks, we'd look at hot rods. Well, also there was the automobile section there where they'd have boats, planes, and stuff like that. Boy, men-oriented books. And one day, I discovered this book. The name of it is Here Is Your Hobby, Car Customizing. And it turns out there was actually a series of these books, Here Is Your Hobby, and it was on slot car racing, model car building, doll collecting, dancing, other little things. It was a whole series of books. And in this particular one, what set it apart from the other books on the shelf is it was kind of a weird neon yellow color, almost like a pea yellow, which is really weird for a book, kind of neon-y. And so right away it drew me, and then I pulled the book out, and on the cover, and I'll pull up a screen share here if I can get it to work correctly for us.
Uh-oh, here we go.
Bill?
Right there.
Ooh, hello.
Yeah.
It was Ed Roth's Mysterion, okay? Now, here's the thing, and I did, of course, who wouldn't want to research the history of the Mysterion? Now, this particular one is a clone. This isn't the original. This is a clone based on Ed's. Get this. Ed Roth built this car in 1963. And that's just a mind blower because, well, first off, what put Ed on the map was, other than his crazy designs, is that he was the first to create fiberglass bodies. He would make a plaster Paris. He'd make a mold. He'd first make it from plaster Paris, and then he would put the fiberglass over it. He would spend about a year just making the body alone. And this car was on the cover of that book, and there was pictures inside of it. And when I saw it, it's like you look at it, and because you never see anything before, it's like seeing a UFO for the first time.
Yeah.
There's nothing like it. On the road, there wasn't any Hot Wheels like it. And that's when it kind of clicked to me, like, what the hell is this? But yet, looking at it, I couldn't draw myself away.
Even today, it'd be impressive. But, back then, that's just insanity.
Think about it. 1963.
Nuts.
The bubble top roof on it. And here's another thing about Ed. I mean, Ed is such an interesting guy to delve into his history. Is that Ed wasn't an engineer. He just would cannibalize things and just piece them together like a sculptor. Like, he just go through salvage and find parts that made it all work. So this car was just a combination of all kinds of different car parts. Another thing that's interesting is what people refer to as the Cyclops headlight on it. That was the very first thing that Ed created before he even came up with the rest of the car. He made that first.
Wow.
Yeah, isn't
Designed
that a trip?
the car to hold the headlight.
Exactly. What a trip. And so it's got twin engines on it, Ford 406s, I believe. And you're like, well, how the hell did two engines drive this thing? It's got the transaxles from a pickup from the 40s. It's called a Banjo axle. And to be honest, later I learned that I don't even think Ed could even drive this thing because, well, look at the seating position.
Greg, there's your carpet.
There's the carpet.
Exactly. Guys, what was our parents' fascination with this long Wookiee fur kind of?
Yeah.
Gotta rush your car.
It resembled some type of luxury to them, I guess, huh?
Oh man, who knows? Well, there were a lot.
Wow.
There was a lot of drug use back then, so not.
And then also it's got the TV set, and of course it was black and white, but even just a small TV in it, actuators to hold up the dome. Hey, here's another interesting thing: is that the dome top? I don't think it was glass. It was molded. It was made in Minnesota, which is pretty remarkable. The taillights were off a Ford Galaxy, and there's the Banjo. I believe they call it the Banjo transaxle. Yeah, look at the tires. It's just smoothies.
Wow.
Gee whiz. So crazy.
Yeah, and then a Krager steering wheel. And again, I don't know how the hell you drive that. I mean, your legs would have to be 6 inches long.
Yeah.
I ain't getting that thing.
You steer with your knees.
Yeah. Like bungee up the basketball.
He's built a lot of crazy cool stuff like that through the years. I mean, he was amazing.
Yeah. I think about Somebody actually did a PC, I think it was like about 10 years ago. I think they called it the Beatnik something. It was on BitTech, but it was inspired by this design. Actually, more was like the Beatnik Bandit, which was similar to this rod. Yeah, that was the big thing for me. And then after that, of course, I've always been a big Ed Roth fan.
Me too. Yeah.
Well, we were looking at that headlight. When you told me the story about that headlight, I got to looking at the shape of that headlight, and it looked like one of those stereoscopic eyes from the original War of the Worlds.
Yeah,
I thought the same thing. That's crazy.
They were three colors.
Oh yeah, and I went back, and that movie came out in 1953, so it came out before this. So it might very well have been something that he used as influence on it. But I mean,
right.
it's
Something from
the
that
resemblance is really uncanny.
Yeah.
Right on.
Hey, Bill, we've got a couple of quick stories from the YouTube chat if you want us to share.
Awesome. Do it. Let's hear it. Who are
they? Let's see. Rob Lambert said, I started modding back when Thomas Paps owned Tom's Hardware. I started seeing some fascinating mods and wanted to come up with something unique to me. And he said, thank you for doing the insights on where modding came from, because he didn't know. Another one, Spartan Mods. Mine started out of necessity. As a kid, we were too poor to have cool stuff, so I had to invent things from what I had.
That makes sense.
My grandpa was a technology teacher in the Navy, and that got me into computers. And then the last one that we have so far is Insolent Gnome. We said, I spent my youth with my nose buried in Carcraft and Hot Rod magazines and planning a build based on the one car that stayed with him over the last 28 years. But he hasn't told us what that is yet.
Well, he had posted, is that Insolent Gnome you said?
Yep.
He had posted tweeted something at me a few weeks ago, and maybe it was it was a, I think it was a, I'm not sure. It was like from the 80s. It had like a hot pink with blue trim or something. Although, Dave, I'm sorry if that's not it, but I recall that you said you wanted to build something like that because it was something you saw in the magazine. He might even post a link if we've still got time. Dave, if you got a link to it, post it in the chat and we'll share it.
You can't post links in the chat. Unfortunately, YouTube doesn't allow that. But he said it was Matt and Debbie Hayes, 88 Pro Street T-Bird.
Yeah, that's what it was, a T-Bird, not a Buick. Okay. And it was the hot pink one, right?
Sounds like it, from what he was saying.
Do it. Build it, man.
Yep.
Drew, what about you?
Well, I was I grew up in the middle, like really, really middle of nowhere, northern Maine backwoods, and I mean literally in the thick of it backwoods. And I had no access to any kind of car shows or anything like that. So when we had some people moving into the area from, I think it was Long Island, they brought in, first they set up a hobby shop which had, of course, all of the models and everything and all of the various paint supplies and whatnot. But then they started putting in a bunch of skateboard decks and putting out all of the various magazines and then some hot rodding magazines to go along with all of that. And it was in the back of one of the hot rodding magazines where somebody had done a little cartoon strip about the Ratfink. And it just freaking blew my mind right out the back of my damn skull. And so I started seeing the similar art style show up on the skateboard decks and then on some of the models, some of the hot rods and everything. And that kind of led me around to where I finally figured out who Ed Roth was. And I got to doing the research and what I could anyway at the tiny library that we had. And then there was this great moment on TV for us when a rerun of The Munsters came on. And Grandpa comes out with Dragula.
Yeah, best episode ever.
Yeah.
Absolutely, man.
Awesome.
When they're at the drag strip. Oh
yeah.
I can picture a minute right now. Actually, I remember that.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Doesn't he
Big
spin
smile on his
around?
face.
Doesn't he go around in a circle or something like that? And there was a model kit of that too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Also, It always reminds me too, Lil Coffin. There was another model. It was a purple street rod, and I think it was called Lil Coffin, and it had this skeleton leaning alongside the car, and it had the white roof on it.
Yep.
Lil Coffin, yeah.
Yep.
Oh man, it was like back in the '60s. It's always about monsters, getting monsters incorporated
Right.
too with the themes. Yeah, that's a good one, Drew. Yeah. Have you guys ever watched the movie that was done about Ed Roth, where it's got a lot of animation in it?
No,
No, I haven't.
I'll send you a link. I'll message you a link. It's on YouTube.
please,
Oh,
please.
sweet.
Here's the thing. I met Ed Roth years ago. My dad and I, we go to the annual Custom Rod Show. World of Wheels, it used to be called.
Oh,
Yes, World of Wheels, every year. And it was epic because that was the show that they would have the movie cars at, like the Ghostbusters,
Oh, wow.
Ecto, and the Batmobile, the Dukes of Hazzard, Hollywood cars. So that, and they'd have like has-been stars signing autographs and stuff, right? Anyways, Ed Roth would always be at the show shilling his T-shirts, and at the time I was really into Volkswagen Beetles. I was all about these Volkswagen, which are gutless, and I knew that too. But I met Ed through my dad, who would always buy a shirt each year, and I asked Ed, how come you don't have any shirts with one of your monsters driving a Volkswagen Bug? And, and he goes, well, nobody would buy it. It's all about GTOs
That's right.
and 409s. It's not about import cars, sorry.
Things that are loud and shake the ground, you know.
Exactly.
right.
Yeah, I think one of the first things I started actually modding was remote control cars. I just wanted to get rid of that stupid split differential where it would let the one wheel that's off the ground spin like crazy.
yeah.
So I
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
took them all apart, threw screws in there, and glued them all together so that way it was a fixed solid rear
Nice.
axle. Did donuts, wired up 2 batteries to it, and did donuts until out in the snow on the back patio until it hit the retaining wall and broke the axle.
Awesome. How much time we have? I apologize, guys. My shop heater kicked in and I could not stop it in time.
Didn't even hear it.
So how much time we got? Like 20 minutes left?
Yeah.
Just about, yep.
Hey, while we got these guys here, Moss, some of the questions, do you have them queued up? Any of the questions?
Sure. One of them was, what are a few things that you look for or love to see in a build or like in a case mod, scratch build or whatever? And that was from Envious Mods. That was his question to us.
Let's let our guests go first. Go ahead, guys.
I defer, age before beauty to. oh, well, maybe not. So something that I look for in a mod is I like originality. I don't like seeing the same thing done over and over. I like seeing people take different takes. Maybe it's almost the same appearance, but it's done enough to change it, to customize it, to tweak it to their environment, to their application. Imitation is the most sincere form of flattery, and it's a great way to learn some skills. But the first thing that I look for in a mod is what's new about this mod. What is it what have they done to make it theirs? Not just an amalgamation of copying other people, which is good and can produce awesome work. But I like to see a person apply beyond just copying somebody else. I like seeing somebody that can take something else and then mash it around and put it in place and say, this is mine, and this is why it's mine, and this is how I did it in order to get the effect that I wanted. It's like, I love original thinking. I love original thinking.
Yeah, I think I agree with Craig. I like to see people try new materials, new types of paints, new finishes, new, just all kinds of things, and some stuff just doesn't work, but hey, you gotta, you never know. Sometimes the coolest things happen by accident,
Oh
you
yeah.
just grab something, throw it on there, and it's like, holy shit, that looks amazing, And
Mhm.
so yeah, I like to really see when something is used that's out of the ordinary, and those always jump out at me, So there's just there's a lot of different types of things you can get out there, and there's a lot of ways you can use each type of thing or whatever. So you could just you paint it, you sand it, you whatever you do. So I like to see people branch out and just think outside the box and try different stuff.
You
Those
know,
always jump out.
Bob, one thing that you're bringing up, which is really it'll completely intersect with what we're talking about here in regards to hot rods. The one mod that put me on the map was the Boss
Oh,
FX, that Mustang mod that I did.
yeah,
Jesus,
that
a
one's
long
cool.
time ago.
I remember that.
But the thing that most people have come to me about, that they've commented about, was me taking a little 3-inch diameter air filter,
Mhm.
and all I did was zip tie it onto a wire fan guard, and then I screwed the fan guard down on top of the CPU heatsink.
Mhm.
And everybody they were just like, "How'd you do that?" And I'm
Yeah.
like, I just
Trust
did
me.
it.
Yeah, it's one of those. Trust me, it looks a lot better in the pictures. Don't
Yeah,
ask.
exactly. Yeah, don't ask. Just admire. Don't
It
get
doesn't
too
have
close
to
to
be
it.
functional. It doesn't have
But
to be functional. It just has to look cool.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I mean, it's right there, like what you're talking about. Just originality, finding parts that you wouldn't normally think about putting into a machine, and then figuring out how to incorporate them. And it's just, wow. Okay, that was kind of a epiphany moment.
Hmm.
Yeah. How about you, Moss? What is it you look for?
Without echoing for the third time, I guess I also like the originality, but the other thing is I like, even if it's not something I would do myself, like if it's not my taste, I like watching people push themselves
Mm.
and figuring out new ways to do things that they didn't know before, or that they'd never tried before. Because to me, it's a good part of the fun in all of this is watching what other people do, and watching what they can do in the different stages of their modding. Where they start out and it's just this cube that's just 6 sides and that's it, and now all of a sudden there's like all these ridiculous details and all that kind of stuff. So I really like watching the journey as much
Yeah.
as I like the final product.
Yeah. Like I said this earlier, is that there's, to me, the most gratifying is when you watch somebody that's never done it before and they figure it out on their own, and then they have independence and they start experimenting, and it's like you're watching like a kid grow in a
Yeah.
way, and it's like yeah, you get it now. Just keep going, and now you're inspiring me and you're inspiring other people because you have that drive, and that drive is what fuels people. So I think that's really what it, to me, it is watching somebody have their own confidence to experiment and try things. It's the people that need to have their hands held all the time that are afraid, that just exhaust me. It's just like I
Yeah.
can't help. You gotta figure it out on your own.
Right. Right.
So yeah. What about you, Drew?
Well, I been thinking about this a little bit, but Eel and I were talking about one of the first mods that I remember actually making sure to make time every day to go check the log to see if there was an update on, and that was the Project Mars City. It was a Doom-based mod where he built an actual model of one of the entrances to the Mars base,
Crimson
and
Sky.
Yeah, Paul
it had
Capello.
the
Yeah.
yeah, two doors that would pivot open on the front, and then had a little ratcheting
Yep.
access way on the top.
Yep.
And I remember, especially when he started working on the electronics to get that to work, and figuring out the servos and the switches so they wouldn't keep twisting the doors open after they reached their open point, and all of that. That watching somebody building up that knowledge base and sharing what they're learning the entire way with us. That's the kind
Yeah,
of thing that
you're
I
getting
like to see.
educated as a viewer too. Like Bob mentions, when you like to see people use things, materials that have never been used before, you're like, okay, this guy's going to be the guinea pig, so I don't have to be. And then they can share their knowledge with us, you know.
Yep.
And I'll give a huge amount of credit to Insolent Gnome, Dave. He's been experimenting with different stuff like molding parts, and I'd never seen anybody molding plastic parts before, DIY approach. And he was doing that, and he would struggle with it, and he would share his struggles, so everybody was involved. Then also Todd Kay, another guy, he got a 3D printer, and he got like a real, it was an affordable one, and he had to experiment with it to get it to work right, and he was sharing all the progress on that, so we know too, you know. When there's that attitude of like, hey guys, I'm struggling with this too, help me out here, okay, well let's try this and try that, versus just coming in there like, no, I know it all, just stand back and watch the professional, okay?
This is how a professional makes mistakes. Watch this.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, a lot of times.
Oh,
Go ahead.
No, Bob, I defer.
So, I was just going to add too, it's like when you see people use materials, they might be using it for one thing on a mod or whatever, but, it's when you see it and you go, well, I'm not, I may not need it for what they're using it for, but I have a new idea. I might use it on something else. And so, it's not like you're really copying what they did. I mean, you just, it just, watching what other people create just can give you ideas and things as well to use the same materials but in a different fashion or whatever. So, it's just one of those things, and then seeing the trials and tribulations of, just other people. It's always a learning experience for us all. So, or maybe they fail at something and maybe you figure out what they could have done to make it actually work, and if you reach out and go, hey, I know what you could do to make that happen or whatever, so
yeah. And that touches on another topic that we kind of touched on before, is like this transition from community forums to like more of the social media stuff, and you're losing that community involvement with a lot of projects,
Yeah. Yep.
And we got to try to keep that alive, and so people understand the benefits of it.
Right. Right. To expound upon something that Bob said, one of the things that I found truly inspirational in regards to computer modding and finding out different techniques of using materials that I never would have even thought about using, cosplay. Looking at the people who are building these cosplay things, their techniques are amazing in regards to creation of these custom objects, whatever they are, and we can learn a lot from that and pull it into our own little. I mean, I've been having just an absolute ball with Rust techniques over the last couple of machines I've built, and I pulled that off of another cosplay artist. So I mean, it's just. There's other avenues that are starting to grow, as well as hot rod and technology and stuff like that. But there's other avenues out there that with the creative mindset of modding that we can draw inspiration from. And I've got a mod right now where I just learned about Warbler, which is what a lot of the cosplayers use, and I just created a riot shield out of Warbler for a Division mod that I'm doing. And I mean, I just went and watched one of the YouTube videos and saw how they did it. It looked really easy, and I was like, man, that works absolutely perfect. And man, I mean, I can't show it just yet. It's NDA right now, but it's unbelievable. And so it's expensive stuff, but man, the things you can do with it, it's just amazing. So yeah, cosplay is definitely an avenue to start looking around for some other ideas. Yep.
And especially hot cosplay. Like if you Google hot cosplay.
How do you get work done, Bob?
I get the feeling this is something that's going to be like after hours with kids.
Moss, do we have time to get one more question in?
Probably. We got about 10 minutes.
Okay. Got another one for us?
Sure. This one might have to be time boxed a little because I know it's a topic that can go horribly, horribly wrong, as it does in woodworking as well. But what do you guys think about people saying using a CNC makes modding easier?
I can. I'm gonna approach that one right now. I just picked up a CNC machine from a company called Inventables. It's called the X-Carve. It is 1,000 millimeters by 1,000 basically 1 meter by 1 meter square that I have usable. Now, the learning curve on CNC machinery is not easy.
Oh, it's not.
It's not easy. It's an art. It is an art form amongst itself.
Yeah.
It really is. So now, once you create an object and you've sacrificed as much wood or whatever demo material you're going to use in order to come up with a satisfying carve of that object using a CNC machine or something like that, then yeah, but you've put the time in to getting that object into what it is that you want it to be.
Yeah.
So for those that say CNC machinery is not as... Ooh, there's the bike. Sorry, squirrel moment.
Sorry, yeah, just
For those that say CNC machining is not an... I would hesitate to not call it an art, or maybe they think it's cheating, or maybe they think it's not a quote modder's technique. You're not doing it by hand. You're relying on something else to make your cuts for you. There are things that you can only do if you machine something.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
in my brief experience with this, it's been very humbling. I've broken a ton of stuff.
Yeah. It's been a debate that's come up on and off over the years, usually generated by somebody that thinks that the individuals have an edge over them in some way. And what I've said in the past, if you feel, I mean, I understand there is a love and appreciation, respect for the guy that takes and hand carves everything. There's a few guys out there that do everything by hand. They use a jeweler's saw. They file everything. Right. However, there's other individuals. Bob's a perfect example. They've got a timeline to build whatever it is. We do it here. CNC helps, obviously, speed up the process. However, there's a lot of time in drawing that Craig is alluding to. The drawing time, the measuring time. There's all these variables that people don't see that's involved with CNC stuff. And another thing I've said in the past is when those people come out and they say, oh, he's got a CNC or whatever, you know what? Today, you've got 3D printers that have come so affordable, you can get into a decent one now for $1,200, shop around, get an even better one. Or you can find somebody, work with somebody like eMachine Shop online. Every city has CNC machinist shops you can go to for help. So all of the avenues are open. It's just a matter of you walking down and utilizing it yourself. So, you know, it's just a dumb topic to bring up, but I can see why people get a little envious when they see that stuff. And, you know, if I've cut something with a Dremel and a work log, they're like, Bill, how come you're not you're not using your CNC? It's like, I still like the Dremel stuff. I had the Dremel shit before I even got into the CNC stuff, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, I think you know, people need to realize that, you know, just because you have a CNC doesn't mean that somehow you're cheating or it's just super easy all of a sudden. It magically just gets itself all put together and finished. I mean, there's a lot of planning. There's a lot of drawing. There's a lot of thinking. There's a lot of work involved in just getting it to the point to where you push go on the machine. You know, and 3D printers, I mean, my God, you got to sit there. First you have to come up with the idea. It's just a means of getting it to the end, really, is all it is. You just, you know, but even off, you pull your parts off a CNC, they're still sharp. You still got to sand the edges. You got to, I mean, deburr. There's a lot of work no matter what, you know. So yeah, you can do a more accurate job and things like that, and you know, maybe some more intricate work that'll be a little harder with a jigsaw and a drill or whatever. But it's still just a ton of work, you know. So it's not
another
like,
tool.
It's not like you
tool.
just magically made it happen because you have some CNC, you know.
If you don't know how to use a hammer, you can make a fence look like shit.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just another tool. You have to know how to use the tool.
Right on, man. Great. Well said, gentlemen. So, Drew.
Yeah, it looks like we're coming up against the wall here, so I want to give you guys a chance to let our viewers know where they can find your stuff. So, Bob, tell us where we can find you online.
Just Facebook's probably the easiest. You know, I've got a website and stuff, but Facebook will take you everywhere. So it's just facebook.com/bsmods. And the BS stands for Bob Stewart, not bullshit. Well, sometimes maybe.
Depends.
He's got an asterisk over his name. Depends upon
The mood.
Exactly. Exactly.
Right.
You can find me over at Modders Inc. That's modders-inc.com. We're also on Facebook, modders-inc.com. And my personal webpage, www.tech-daddy.com.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. I mean, I think we'll have to open the door again for future topics if you're interested.
Yeah.
Love to. Pleasure being here.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, so if anyone who's watching, if you don't know where to find us, go away. No.
Go to you off my planet.
We can be found at themodzu.com, Facebook /themodzu, Twitter, it's at themodzu, and we have a Google Plus at themodzu as well. And anything that, you know, if you're looking for our forums, if you're looking for a place to drop us a message, any of those sites will work for us. And basically, yeah, we've got all kinds of resources on the forums, you know, how-to guides. All of us have little things here and there sprinkled throughout. There's all of our reviews. As Moss pointed out, I've got a couple of the CM Storm mice to take a look at here. It'll be my first time with the RGB lighting on a mouse, so that's going to be a little bit interesting.
Cool.
And so, Chris, do you have anything lined up coming up here? Any reviews or anything for yourself that you're looking forward to getting out?
That one.
Oh, what is that?
That's
is
a
that?
deep cool dew case. I'm in the
Oh,
middle of taking pictures of that one. I
Okay.
moved a couple of lights so that I didn't have them like right here. So that's what I got going on.
All right, man. Well, I'm going to get out and enjoy this weather because I waited long enough and just get on the
it's not-
shop.
It's not snowing in Minnesota?
Oh, man.
No, it's-
It was the other day.
Oh, man. Oh.
Yeah.
Right
All
on.
right, you guys, you have a good one, and we'll talk later.
Hey,
All right.
thanks.
Thanks.
Thanks for having me. See you guys later. Peace.
Later.